Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks, nerds, ambassadors everywhere, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing and Afternoons with the Ambassador and Council of One's Babylon 5 review. And we're back at a more reasonable time, and glad to be back at our old time of 3:30 Central Time. Glad that you all are here, and hope you enjoy the stream. And of course, make sure you smash that like button and share the stream out with all of your friends if they are fans of Babylon 5 or just good sci-fi in general. And of course, I have got my fellow council members here, Fiona Wolf and Mountains of Elysium. We are awaiting the arrival of Lord Koj and Zodrider. They are probably out doing some exploratory research out beyond the rim. And thanks to everybody for being here today. And Fiona, Elysium, good to see you. Glad to have you back with me. So, how's your week been?
Not too bad. Busy, but not too bad.
Pretty hectic, finishing off projects that I'll need an exorcist to get rid of.
Please do not adjust your TV set. You're now entering the Twilight Zone.
And of course, here is our other fellow council member, Lord Koj. Koj, good to see you, man.
Happy to be here. Sorry I'm late.
You're not late. You're right on time. We just literally got started, so you're good.
Hey.
You are 5x5. So, and of course, as the title said and the thumbnail indicated, we are covering the episode, "The Illusion of Truth," and this is going to be a very interesting discussion because this particular episode, considering the way the world is right now, is going to be very timely. And I would say, as one of the other council members mentioned before we got started, it's somewhat prophetic. So, from the prophet, J. Michael Straczynski, sir, you had this one right, as you often do. So, that being said, we've done our intros. So, guys and gals, let's jump into The Illusion of Truth. The floor is open.
Wherein Mr. Garibaldi makes even more mistakes, but it's not really his fault.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's his fault either.
Because if you compare it to how he reacted to reporters the first couple of times they popped in on B5,
It's like a record that's getting worse and worse. Every time there's a reporter, it's like the bad timing for Mr. Garibaldi, and it seems like be getting worse and worse and worse.
Bester has altered the deal. He doesn't alter it further. Oh.
And to everybody that's popping in the chat, whether you're chatting it up or you're just lurking, good to see you all. Beer 31, Louise X Sparrow, good to see you both, and thank you for being here again today. Appreciate it as always. But yeah, this episode, as I mentioned, is very timely because we kind of find ourselves in a similar situation where we can't necessarily trust the news. And with this episode, you've got ISN, or what was formerly known as ISN. I would technically call it more. Let's see. How would I put Clark? There's a Clark Stellar
Cosmic
Network.
News?
The CSN. Not to be confused with another news organization, Real Life, that has a similar anagram or abbreviation. But the Clark Stellar Network. Yeah, not the most reputable of news sources, to say the least. I mean, it once was, but now, as Captain Sheridan said, is essentially a propaganda arm for President Clark and his regime. Just saying. And of course, Mr. Dan Randall, a man who has a face you just want to punch repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again. Or as Commander Ivanova suggested, space his ass. Of course, strip him naked first, then space his ass. Because you don't want to waste a perfectly good suit.
Yes, because Babylon 5 needs more clothing.
Well, and think about it. Between the equipment and between the clothing for Randall and his team, that could be put to a lot of good use.
Uh,
He did remind me.
Just a yeah, just a little bit, just a little.
He's kind of
But,
like propaganda. You know how propaganda is evil. He's like the Mr. Morden for propaganda. This news guy.
He is. You could compare him to a certain member of a certain political party from the 1930s and 40s who was all about propaganda and propping up the current regime and doing very bad things to good people through a smear campaign.
Mm.
And
Wasn't very
essentially
noble.
Huh?
Wasn't very nobles, I do believe.
ooh.
No, he wasn't. And at least I get the wordplay. So, yeah. But this guy is so sleazy and so slimy. He lies to Sheridan's face, and I felt like Sheridan did. Like, I wish I had just put a PPG in his face and pulled the trigger repeatedly. What utter
man.
sleazebag!
Yep.
I mean, they go ahead, Elysium, please.
I think he didn't, in a funny way, he didn't actually lie, but he lied with the truth. He said that I'll tell as much truth as I can. And he could tell no truth.
Except,
He knew that.
yeah.
And so he basically lied. He lied by telling the truth. He said, yes, I am a propaganda arm. I'm staying inside. We are working for Clark. And that made him more dangerous.
Oh, the only sliver of truth the guy got in was near the very end to let Sheridan know what's happening with his dad, basically.
Yeah.
And even then, he had to tie it in with like, oh, this might upset Sheridan to know this. Da, 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 da. And then even looking at the Lurker's guide for this episode, I didn't even realize that they changed the sequence on the ISN thing to showcase Earth and the Moon at the end. I'll have to go back and rewatch that, like, to see what the old ISN sequence is.
I didn't know. I didn't pay attention to that. That's interesting.
I didn't.
So
either.
I'm like,
now dang it! Now I'm gonna have to go check it out after we're done. Darn you, Fiona!
I'm like, oh, okay, that's a subtle jab there.
But this episode is most definitely by no means a win for the crew of Babylon 5. It is, Sheridan said we didn't really give them anything, but unfortunately, with a good editing team, they can make anybody look bad, and they most definitely made Sheridan and Delenn and Ivanova and everybody, and even Garibaldi look bad, and even poor Mr. Lanier, even made him look bad. Like,
well, even in Garibaldi's case, they didn't really have to edit much, unfortunately, because the activation program is basically like, okay, Mr. Garibaldi, you're going to be even more of an asshat to your comrades. Like, oh no.
Which is crazy because that's brought to us by Psycor via Bester, and then we see a Psycor commercial in here, which brings me back to RoboCop movies. You know how they had their own commercials inserted in their wacky world.
Yeah. Not to mention with
Psycor.
Not to mention with the telepath commercial in Starship Troopers.
Yes, like that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Although once you read the Psycor trilogy, you'll realize Bester was reveling in the fact that he could not only kick Garibaldi over, but get to the rest of the command staff for basically abusing his goodwill, even though in his own mind he thought he was being merciful. It's like, oh God.
I don't think Alfred Bester knows the meaning of the word merciful.
No, he likes to think he does, but it's kind of like somebody play acting at having some sort of emotion. It's not really there.
Yeah, Bester's the type who's like, I killed him without pain. That's merciful.
Gee, you still killed him, you asshole. And
to
the
he's
chat
like,
was
it was
good
necessary.
see, bud. So, but this episode, like I've mentioned, it's It is very much prophetic. It is very timely considering the world we currently live in and the fact that we, as I said, I'm just going to hit it right on the, I'm going to hit the nail right on the head. We can't always trust what we see online or in the media. It's just the way it is. And this episode really highlights just how truly deceptive and how truly destructive a corrupted fourth estate can be. And when you only have one source for news, and that is, of course, ISN,
Mm-hmm.
can kind of be a problem.
Yeah.
Of course, this will cause the creation of the Voice of the Resistance with Commander Ivanova, and that will be awesome. And so they took something bad and turned it into a good. It just took them a little bit to get things up and running. And you know, the funny thing is, you find Sheridan down there in the war room, and I can't remember if it was, I think it was Delenn or it was Ivanova or somebody that found him down there, and they're like, "Why are you
Ivanova.
here?" Was it Ivanova? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she was like, "Why are you down here?" She's like, "War's over." He's like, "Yeah," but he's like, "I have a feeling we're going to need this place soon." And well, he's right, because they are going to turn that place into something good.
Although Delenn does remark, like, you guys change. We have stuff that lasts thousands of years, and you guys change stuff from like week to week.
Yes, because we like to repurpose. We have to repurpose because we have a finite amount of space. So, and I'll bring up Liz Cox's comment here. The Earth Alliance Civil War has an interesting arc for B5, has been building up since season 1. Lewis, you're not wrong, because if you remember, I think it's season 1 or season 2. Well, actually, I think it's the tail end of season 2.
Season 2.
Was it season 2?
With the ISM takeover?
Because Santiago gets killed at the end of season 1, and that's when Sinclair leaves, and then Sheridan comes in, and everybody's feathers are still kind of ruffled at the beginning of season 2 because, well, Santiago was killed, and now Clark's in control, and now everything has just been turned up to 11 on the succo meter for people on Earth, people on Mars, and okay, I just gotta say this. I know this is a very dark and a very kind of grim episode, but they do throw a few humorous moments in there, and the one about the airlock, but also Marcus and Franklin on their way to Mars, and Marcus singing
I spy with my little eye.
No, him singing.
Besides,
I am the very model of a modern major
general.
I'm trying to think. Was it Marcus got originally? That was not in the cut. And when they were showing it to the actors, from what I understand, he got really upset. He said, "Like, I learned all those lines, I sang it, so that's why they stuck it on in the end credits."
And I love the fact that they did that. And they're like, "Okay, that's it, that's a wrap." And he's like, "What?" I love that, because that is one of my all-time favorite pieces.
but I do like the fact that they do play the I Spy game. Even more boxes.
Some of those lines I've actually used. That this is the sort of conversation that can only end with a gunshot. And I thought that's when he was cooped up with Marcus. They're two. They have such great chemistry.
Oh yes,
fantastic.
And we can dig a little more into this, but it's when they get to Mars that Marcus is like, "I might be a virgin because I'm saving myself for Ivanova, but dude, when opportunity knocks, answer."
It's like the lady likes you, Steven.
Yeah, exactly. The lady's got a thing for you, Steven, and I think you got a thing for her, Steven.
Oh anyway. Boy.
Oh mercy. Anyway, back to the more dour part of this episode, and that is, of course, the visit of ISN to the station. And of course, you got Zach Allen just kind of stepping right into it, and it's a big mountain of it, and well, it just sucks. He's like, smile, you're on camera. And Zach, God love him, he just gives that, I wish I could just shoot this stupid camera right now and then shoot you and you and you and you and you and you. And you too, you giant prick.
Oh man. Ugh. But there is one humorous angle for Mr. Garibaldi this time around when he's talking with the artifact guy, and Garibaldi knows quite a few things about artifacts and general security of certain areas, so he's able to run in circles around this guy, so he doesn't get fleeced with his new independent job.
Well, of course, you've got that flashback scene where it says, "You work for no one but us. You work for no one but us," and I'm like, good grief, creepy. Can you say 1984 just a little bit? I mean, this episode feels like it was plucked right out of an Orwellian tale. I mean, it feels like it was that Straczynski was channeling his Orwellian side of his brain and just like, let's see how bad of an episode I can just write. And when I say bad, I don't mean bad as in quality, but just how much can I make things suck for my main characters? Which is something I can relate to because I've had to do that with my fan fiction. But that's another story for another time. But in terms of how Straczynski structures this episode, he tries to layer some humor in because he knows how heavy this episode is going to be.
Ooh. And looking more at the lurker stuff real quick, I didn't realize that. I thought it was like a glitch in the actual episode, but no. Like when he's interviewing Sheridan and Delenn, when he's asking certain questions, he's in another room entirely. And
that's in the final version.
Yeah, but I'm just like, I didn't even notice that initially. I just thought there was a problem with the man. That's subtle.
Yeah, it's because they had to reshoot the questions because they got certain answers. Like, let's say they record like Delenn saying yes, absolutely. Then they'll reshoot later, like a studio cut of a certain any movie that's sabotaged. They'll reshoot his question to be like, "Will you attack Earth?" And she'll be like, "Yes, absolutely." Which originally he's probably like, "Do you like mangoes?" And she's like, "Yes, absolutely."
Yep.
They do a lot of that, and they display it perfectly. And that's one I didn't catch either at first watch, too.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that myself because I didn't realize that the background was different. But,
Go ahead,
Lisa. No, go ahead, Lisa, please.
Thinking a lot of that is those who will follow the regime. And I see this myself. I'm pretty left-wing on things, but I understand that both sides lie. And if you are fully in one camp, you won't care what you see. So the fact that the background changes won't matter to you. You'll say, oh, look, they're lying. But to those in the know who can see, they're just saying, look, we can change the background. We can change the truth. And you can't do anything about it. It's also a power play by doing that. And it's very dangerous.
Very.
And that's actually a very astute observation, Elysium. So well said. And Fanny, you can speak. You have a microphone. You are on the panel here.
I don't know. I just like adding interesting things to the chat as well. Like, here we go.
Yeah. Let's see. In the Delenn Sheridan interview, there is a change in the vocal acoustics of the journalist for the new questions he asks. He's singing in a different chair, different room. Yeah. But, the really sad, I have to admit, I have probably felt the way that Sheridan and Delenn and Ivanova were all feeling when they were sitting there in Sheridan's office watching the ISN broadcast, and you see them cut away and him just standing at that window, I think it is, just staring out. Ivanova just sitting there in her chair like, what the hell just happened? And Delenn gets up and she's not sure what to say. She walks over to John and then she just turns, puts her and just leaves. And
I do like the fact that Oh,
Mhm.
sorry.
No,
Keep
go
going.
ahead. No, go
No,
go ahead,
no.
Fiona.
Okay.
Go
No,
ahead.
I do like the fact that the angle that you see when Sheridan's turning off the news feed, it's from the monitor's angle in the room.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That I think was a very, very nice touch. But it just goes to show how truly insidious, and I think that's an appropriate word here, how truly insidious the Clark government is. He will do anything and everything he can to discredit, destroy, and just railroad anybody that's in his way. I'll say this, for a pudgy, balding, fat man, he lacks charisma, but he can be devious as all hell, or at least he can create opportunities for other more devious people to really come in and screw with people.
He probably
And
has a whole staff of people thinking like that too, helping him.
and I'll say this. I think Clark is more of a analog, not so much for a certain mustachioed German fella. I think he's more of a analog for a certain Russian fella from the 1940s and 50s by the name of Stalin. There, I said it. Oh. Hang on
I
one
see
second.
that,
My
though.
computer's. Well, and he might have Stalin's brutality and his evil streak, but he bears Mussolini's resemblance. Sorry, did I say that out loud too?
Oh, isn't he a handsome chap down there on the bottom right?
Oh. But he didn't get to keep the Earth, though.
A pudgy, balding fat man. And to the chat,
What was it that
Tim?
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Tim. Good to see
Tim.
you, man. Go ahead, listen.
What is it that Ivanov? I just remember, like, when going back to the point, was it Lewis made earlier about the war building, when the vote came in, was it midnight on the firing line, and Ivanov, I got the feeling that Garibaldi voted for Santiago and Clark, but Ivanova was talking about him saying, I don't trust Santiago, he has no chin, and his vice president has many. So
Yep, pretty much. Well, like I said, he has the personality and the brutality of Stalin and the lack of intellect, but he has the looks of Mussolini.
Oh, what a
They
slimy
pretty
combo.
much used everything they could that they taped get to paint everything in a bad light. Even when
Oh,
Londo
good
was
grief.
complaining again,
Yep.
wagging his finger at Sheridan, it's just like, and
Yeah,
then
it was-
of course the guy does the voiceover. Oh, his alien overlords are cross with him right now.
Yep.
That was so
You're like-
like tabloid. Oh my god.
Well, if you cut out, and the interesting thing that they do, you notice during the episode, they do snapshots of certain shots that they're going to use and that they're going to twist and distort, and that's one of them where Londo's shaking and wagging his finger at Sinclair, but it's over something completely and totally innocuous. It's over the temperature of his freaking quarters, has nothing to do with anything else, and those sleaze bags at ISN and little Mr. Randall and his editing team, they deliberately did that, not to just discredit. Now let's be honest here. Not only are they doing it to discredit the crew of Babylon 5 who went renegade, but they're doing it as a smear campaign against aliens. Because what's the big thing that Clark dislikes and he's using to get other people on his side? Anti-alien hate. Sounds a little something like a certain little mustachioed German fella did back in the 1940s. Just saying.
A lot of tyrants. Usually, if you put the blame on a demographic, it's easier to put people in line to follow with your political goals because hate is the opposite of love, equally powerful and absolutely damaging. People won't even think because they've already casted their vote when they practice hatred.
I'll have to find a link to a video. It was a movie made in 1946 about pretty much it cannot happen here. There was a guy pretty much blaming demographics there for your problems. People in the crowd were going along with him going, yeah, I think he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He makes great points. where all the people, the minorities, were being singled out until the guy mentioned a group he was part of. And then it was suddenly, hey, what's wrong with me? Everyone else is bad. I'm good. These sort of regimes will pick one group, get everyone together to attack them. Once they're gone, they'll move on to the next, until there's no one there to fight against them. And that's both right and left. It's not unique to one side or the other.
Oh no, yeah.
Mhm.
That is very true of both sides, and I will even say this because I'm a little more. Okay, I'm very much more right leaning, but I tried to be somewhat centrist on certain things.
I think everyone is either one or the other, but try to be centered. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's how we help each other find the truth.
Yeah, but it just goes to show that a show like this, like Babylon 5, it gives us the opportunity to have this discussion, to
Mhm.
talk about ideological lines, and the fact that not only, I mean, this is obviously a very science fiction based show, but there is a lot of truth in it because we see much of ourselves, even the ugly side of us, in this episode, and what human nature at its ugliest is capable of. Nothing that Sheridan or Delenn or anybody else said was even remotely provocative. Not in the slightest. And somehow, Randall and his bunch are able to twist and turn things and make not just the crew, but the population of Babylon 5 look like very bad people. And I noticed we lost Koj. I imagine he's probably has some internet issues, so I'm sure he'll be back in a few minutes. So anyway, but guys, there he is. It didn't take long. Welcome back, bud.
Thank you. I was saying too much. They had to take me away.
Oh no, it's okay, bud. It's all right. So, but I want to ask you all this question. And I know this is going to be. This may or may not get some hot water. But quite frankly, I don't care. Do you see, from your perspectives, granted, the four of us have a different perspective, and to the chat as well, I want to ask you this question as well. Do you see similar parallels, not just so much in the news media, but also for those of us that inhabit the online sphere?
100%.
And I mean, we know the bad actors. We know the really, I will say this, and I mean it wholeheartedly, the truly toxic elements of the internet and social media. Do you all see similar parallels from this episode and what we have to deal with on a daily basis?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Super duper yes.
What makes it even more difficult is there's those elements on both sides. So it's not just in this setting, in this show, we have Clark. He's the bad guy, clearly the bad guy. But when you look at our world, there are other elements that make it much more difficult to see. Because yes, what we see there is definitely happening. And I can also see it in many different fandoms, many different sides, on both sides and on all sides. And that's what makes the online sphere even more toxic.
Yeah.
The way.
Because,
sorry,
Koji. No, because like I said, I would have thought myself maybe center right before, but I found like I'm much more left wing. But I got to see, it's like you have to look at the humanity of both sides. You have to see value in people, and otherwise nothing can come together. And when you're setting up others, like Clark is doing, like we see in today's world, it only ends, unfortunately, it doesn't end well.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of stuff erodes the foundations And once there's no foundation left to rot, well, what are you going to have? A whole lot of people adrift.
That's true, because you think about it, by the end of this season, Clark will be gone. The majority of his government will be kicked out of power. But a lot of people are still going to be kind of cast adrift, not to mention during the Earth Alliance Civil War, a lot of people are going to be cast adrift not knowing what the hell to do. Because they've heard so much bad stuff about one side or the other, they don't know who the hell to trust anymore. And that's where people like Sheridan and Lynn and others are going to have to step in and say, look, people did stuff for all sorts of reasons during this war. And that is a truly ugly and awful thing about a war like this. Not everybody that fought for the opposite side was a bad person. They were doing it for different motivations. Some of them could be perceived as purely innocent, but at the same time, other sides of them can be perceived as very duplicitous, very malignant, very toxic and evil and self-serving or selfish. And you have to ask yourself the question. And Dan Randall says it, the guy who plays Dan Randall says it very succinctly. There's no such thing as the purely objective journalist. That's like believing in the tooth fairy or unicorns or Santa Claus or something to that effect, I believe is what he says.
What you mean, no Santa Claus? Sorry.
No, it's okay, Elysium. You're fine, man. You're fine. But, yes, we all have our own particular perspectives and our own particular biases and so on. But that doesn't mean that we are inherently bad people. The reason we have our own perspectives and our own biases is because it's how we are. It's how our environment conditions us, or it's how we choose to live our own lives and how we choose to perceive the world and people around us. And there's nothing inherently evil in those things, but it's more so what is evil is how you act on those particular biases or those particular perspectives. Because, and I know I'm going to be quoting a line from Star Wars, but I think it's appropriate here. When Obi-Wan says to Luke, "So what I told you was true from a certain point of view," and he continues to say, "You're going to find that many of the truths that we cling to all depend greatly on our own point of view," and that's echoed in Revenge of the Sith. When Anakin says to Obi-Wan, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. And he's not necessarily wrong if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The Jedi denied him having a normal life. The Jedi denied him the knowledge to save his wife. The Jedi couldn't even be bothered to save the life of his mother. They were too bound up in their own agenda or their own issues to even take into consideration for one split second that maybe the life of his mother meant more than his duty to the Order, or maybe even his love for Padme. And if you look at this episode, you have to ask the question: is the character of Dan Randall truly evil, or is he simply trying to survive and make a living and do what he can to get the truth out there? Because I look at it this way, and, as much as I kind of derided Randall towards the beginning of this stream, the fact is, you really have to ask the question: what has he got writing? What has he got on the writing on the line? What is he having to deal with back home? Who is he answering to? And you could say, well, the guy can just go renegade and just run. That may be true, but maybe he could be in a position where he can't just up and run. Maybe
Most
he's
of
got-
the decent news people, from what I remember in the later episode, they were immediately jailed, like almost from the fall of ISN.
Mhm.
Because the one guy came back on the air and said, "Yeah, we've been gone a long time." You know, they basically corralled
Actually, it was a
everybody
woman,
who, you know, yeah. But still, it's the same idea. Like the one guy was trying to get stuff out as ISN was falling, you know, being assaulted by its own government, and then you know you have the other lady coming out later. So yeah, I think most of the decent people pretty much got corralled almost instantly.
I would say he's evil too because of, to piggyback off what you said, Fiona, because after everything that's been done, whether he's a good man to other people, he is consciously knowing the end result of his actions because he's done before. He's very professional in lying to someone's face, using the truth against them. That's a different kind of lie, decorated in the present of a truth. Because not telling people something and doing something other is also a form of lying too. It's just, it's kind of like he may not personally have any animosity towards any of these people or characters. He's just doing his job, but so is an assassin who is hired to kill like a speaker of peace, so to speak. You know, we can fill in the blanks of what those details are, but someone who gets voluntarily into the business of corruption or hurting other people, whether that person has no malicious intent, is still taking part in malicious actions, you know? So it's a different kind of evil, I'd say, that he practices. And, you know, like doing bad things and good things, they're all temporary. It's like what we do the most of that define us. And perhaps this guy does need to pay the bills for his penthouse suite wherever, and you know, that's what he values. But to do that business, to get that done, he's doing a lot of bad things to keep that, you know, whatever he values.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's why I wanted to kind of play devil's advocate for a minute.
Oh yeah,
because we need this is a question that we should ask about this character, Dan Randall. Is he truly evil, or is he simply trying to save his own neck, or is he maybe not a purely unbiased journalist, but is he maybe one of the more ethical journalists out there who's having to operate in a bad system? And that is also another question we should ask. But I do want to bring up something that Mountains of Elysium put into our private chat here. It's from the Lurker's Guide. I am definitely not anti-reporter. I am against the control of truth by any government or political agenda. We are made stronger by a multiplicity of voices, and the more those voices are allowed access to a level playing field, the more often the truth will come out to play.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I don't know who said that, Elysium, but I'm glad you found it.
That was JMS in an interview.
Oh, was that from
He also
Straczynski?
mentioned
Okay.
that was Straczynski. He also said that he's been asked by a lot of universities, can they use this as teaching in their guide about propaganda, how media can be used. And
Yeah.
I think it's very, very relevant.
Mhm.
And just
Well,
going
yes.
back to the point, I think it's easy for us to criticize Dan Randall when we don't have guns pointed to our heads. We don't know what's pointed at him. I do feel that he would be a bad faith actor even in a free society. He would be one of those being an a-hole for a-hole's sake to make himself a name. And I think he's more about Dan Randall than supporting the Clark regime. He's just found
That
a
is
way
true.
to make a bigger name for himself.
Yeah, that is true too.
And
I go ahead, Elysium, please.
I was just about to say the actor I thought was brilliant in it. And I have to give him real kudos. He played it absolutely brilliantly.
Oh, he was great.
Oh yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. The guy who played the part of Dan Randall, he did a very good job. he made me believe that this guy was a complete and utter sleazebag. Absolutely. But there is one other part of this episode we haven't really touched on, but it's a small scene, but I think it's a very impactful and a very powerful scene. And it's during the news broadcast where where Earth Force or EarthGov or one of the other ministries, quote unquote, and they are not ministries by any stretch of the term, capture that one director, and you can tell the guy has been interrogated, potentially tortured, and coerced into outing others that have worked with him. And it's really, truly frightening to think that it's gotten that bad on Earth where people are being... this is being done to them. And it's... whoever that actor was, whoever he was, he did a brilliant job, I think, at playing someone that was completely broken and shattered mentally and emotionally and psychologically. But the other interesting thing, it's actually it's a graphic effect. When he names each person, it says the person's name and where they live. Now that to me is truly frightening, to think that they know exactly where these people live. Now that's doxing to the nth degree. And nobody's going to, those people are probably not going to get off Earth, unfortunately, before they get captured. And heaven only knows what's going to happen to them. And it sucks. But I do want to bring up Lewis Cox's comment here. Go ahead, Lysium, please.
I was just about to say that that confession goes along with the interview with Delenn and Sheridan. People who support the regime will go, "Oh, this guy's obviously evil. He needs to be brought down." You see it with cancel culture. These guys need to be quietened down, taken aside. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those who are against it can see, well, this is what happens when I stand up. When I point out the background is different. So it's a warning. Again, another warning to people, don't resist. This is what you'll get.
And again, we will see that later on in the season with Sheridan himself. He will probably go through something, or if not exactly the same thing that poor director went through as well. But I do want to address Lewis Cox's comment here. President Clark is an evil person to us. However, he is a good man in his own eyes. I believe him to be evil myself. Of course, Ambassador. Yeah. Lewis Clark is evil. Dyed in the wool evil. He is an opportunist. He is an egomaniacal maniac. I would say that he is most definitely. I don't want to use the term racist because it's not appropriate here, but I would definitely
specious.
Yes, he is a specious, and he is most definitely anti-alien. To put it in the context of the series, he is definitely anti-alien, and Clark is. He is the quintessential devil of B5. Although he doesn't make deals, but he is just the embodiment of absolute corruption, mania, egomaniacal mania, a power-hungry nature, and the willingness to do anything and everything to do what must be done to get what he wants. He killed a good, decent man. I mean, we can at least assume that Luis Santiago was a decent president. He was a decent man.
Yeah, he was investing in peace and everything.
Yeah, he was a lot like he was like the old emperor, the old Centauri Emperor Turhan. He was trying to bury the hatchet and make peace.
Imagine if those two had what the setting of Babylon 5 would have been like if Turan and Santiago had signed a treaty themselves instead of Clark and Carthagia.
Oh, that'd be something. That I think the Centauri Emperor, he would be able to have his dreams and goals actually followed through because he was ill with having that treaty signing.
Well, for that you would have to get rid of the shadows.
Correct. First things first.
Because they're
and-
really the ones that like instigated some of this stuff because they wanted to
Oh,
support
yeah.
people that valued power over everything else.
Yeah, they worked with Clark too.
well, yeah.
And so, in a way, he's not even living up to whatever his ideological standards are because he accepted a ton of shadow tech.
Mhm.
So,
I
One-
do want to. Go ahead, Elysium. No, go
I
ahead.
was about to say that Emperor Turan in that episode, he was negotiating with the Rangers. They were in the throne room when he was murdered, talking to Prime Minister Malachi. So he was very much in the other camp. So
Yeah.
perhaps again, had that gone ahead, he would have had Vorlon protection.
Maybe. But I want to thank Louise Sparrow for bringing this up. Have you seen the new JMS comic Telepaths? It's on B5, but it comes out this week. Louise, no, I did not even know that he was working. I had been working on another comic, but I will definitely give that a peek and everything as soon as I can. So
What's
I
the
think-
publication of that, Louis Sparrow? If you don't mind letting us know.
Louise, please let us know and everything. I'll bring up
Louise.
your comment. About the list of names in the confession. Yes, they were based on the real names of the writers who were blacklisted: Dalton Trumbo and Paul Jerica. Yeah, I completely forgot about. Yeah, the ones that were blacklisted during the McCarthy is the McCarthy stuff during the 1950s. So thank you for bringing that up, Elysium. Good point. Let's see what we got here. Oh, Elysium, don't tease me.
It's true. He was it tweeted out. He wanted to get names, and what I've heard, they've been in contact. Do you mind me saying it out on the stream, or will I?
Be my guest. Be my guest.
Yes. JMS has been reaching out to the BBC to take over Doctor Who, and how far that's gotten, I don't know. But supposedly, at the time, I hadn't heard that they'd gotten back to him, but I've heard since there's been contacts made between the two.
Oh, please let that be true.
I would love that. Oof.
Now, and I will just say this as a fan of both Doctor Who and B5, this would be a great opportunity to have some maybe cameo appearances by surviving cast members from B5 in Doctor Who. So I say,
Oh, that'd be
Yes!
cool.
please.
Yes, that'd be so cool.
Yes, it would.
Peter
See, Lita-
Jurassic, he's still popping up every now and then.
Yeah, he's still around, but
I saw him
maybe,
in 42, the Jackie Robinson movie too.
Oh, really? Was he in that?
Yeah, he played the racist bus or hotel guy that wouldn't house the team. I forget, but it was in that scene.
And I do want to address Lewis's comment here. It seems Babylon 5 is more relevant now than it was back in the 90s, if I'm honest.
Mhm.
Lewis, that is the interesting thing about well-written science fiction or media of any kind. It's timeless. And Babylon 5 is very much timeless and timely. It just depends on what's going on in the world at the time. But yeah.
I think
Well, that's
Harlan
why-
Ellison- Sorry,
No,
Ambassador.
go ahead, Lisa. No, it's all right. Go ahead.
I think Harlan Ellison had a lot to do with that. A lot of his influence was that
Oh, yeah.
the story should be set in maybe should be science fiction, but it should be a universal story that could be about humans, that it's humans in a science fiction setting. So the
Oh, yeah.
fact that it's relevant now, it will be relevant in 100 years. And that's the thing about a show like Babylon 5. I think you'll see elements, and I hope there is 100 years. There will be elements that unfortunately will be relevant. And on the flip side, on the hopeful side, there's hope
Yes.
for us all. We see a humanity in Parliament of Dreams that has gotten over religious differences, that has gotten over many social issues. Humanity works together. Even if we, in the fighting, even if there was a civil war, a lot of the worst issues, worst aspects of humanity has been overcome. Not there, but overcome.
And Louise, anything put this up here? It's AWA Upshot. Apparently, it's on Kindle. So if you have a Kindle, you know what? Give me a minute. Y'all carry on the conversation. I'm gonna dig this up on Google real quick. So give me just a minute. Y'all carry on.
Well, I had a thought. I almost forgot about the social media. Like, I believe, like this episode reflects a lot of news today. And me personally, I'm not a fan of a lot of news because of how news is made, in the sense that it counts as entertainment. News sources and news channels are billed the same as any entertainment show on TV or whatever, for the most part, and they make commercial revenue. So I just personally do not trust anything that that is made off of commercial revenue, because they are bought out. They could be hired to promote something, and that's where they get their big money for. So everything can always be skewed. So I always believe it's up to us to do the homework and find out the truth of things. But this episode reflects perfectly how things can be manufactured to present a point of view, and I feel it's very toxic, and we see the same thing in social media. So if this episode was to reflect social media, in my opinion, it would be like showing the comment section as the episode is going, just as this show is going, where you see all the Clark supporters saying, down with aliens, oh, Delenn is gross, da 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 da. Like, if you put that there, that would resemble social media now in their interaction with all this stuff.
Well, it was basically meant for the people that support Clark anyway, who are already eating the sheeple Fruit Loops. It's the reason why I'm adamant against the masks and everything else that's happening in actual life right now. It's like, people should decide. Don't just move with the herd, And most outrage culture is about being part of the herd and piling on to stuff. And it's just, like when I was a kid, news used to have here's a highlight reel that will renew your faith in humanity. It wasn't just outrage clickbait stuff for everything. Yeah, they actually showcase hey, here's where this guy's helping this little old lady cross the road. You can still find stuff like that on the internet to alleviate yourself from the constant spin machines. Right. But they want you to keep feeding yourself on that stuff so you stay angry all the time, because somebody who's angry all the time, they won't see as clearly.
It's the quickest form of loyalty, too, when you get people angry.
Yeah. Well, to just a short segue, I did find this, and Louise, thank you for bringing this to our attention. This is from Bleeding Pool, a really reputable website.
Nice.
Sure now. Son of a bitch. Stress again.
Wow, that's
technology is great when it works. It's a pain in the ass when it doesn't.
Well, unfortunately, when I was watching another stream, if you happen to be streaming a music video, even though you mute it, usually a copyright claim will be hit on you.
Yeah,
they have a new kind of sensor where they could sense images, just, and they started when you could do image search, so they could do that same thing with video. Because I had the same thing too in the background. I had some trailer going on, no audio, and they still docked us.
That sucks, dude. But it says J. Michael Straczynski returns to telepaths with Steve Eppington in AWA September. I can't pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try. But yeah, Mr. Straczynski is returned to one of the fields that made him famous. That is, of course, comic books. So I say, hooray! And there was much rejoicing. So illicit. Okay, thank you. Good.
I love his work. Changeling is still such a beautiful movie.
So, let's see what we got here. Stay angry. Insert chin scratching emoji. Who does that remind me of? Elysium, someone I'm going to be roasting pretty soon on the channel. He wears a helmet and a and a robe that's so loud that even a blind gay man would go, "Oh my gosh, that's horrible, dude." Sorry, did I say that out loud? Yes, I did. I don't care. Anyway, well, guys, any final thoughts on the episode before we wrap up for the afternoon?
I find it ironic that he was accusing Sheridan of being part of like Minbari superiority, like eugenics program, when at home it's like, oh, you're curtailing telepaths to be your own personal army, and we gotta breed stronger telepaths with stronger telepaths.
Right? It's so true. I have one last thing is that I like how the beginning of this episode with Ivanova and Sheridan talking kind of foreshadowed a revelation that they have with the voice of the Resistance. And the beginning of when they showed the actual ISN episode, it started with that, frame that, like, I guess that, FaceTime angle from the screen, and ended with it as like its own little closure. But the one thing, aside from that, this thing I feel like shows the strength, because all Babylon 5, we see the threats of like aliens, powers, all first ones, but there's also the threat and power of the pen mightier than the sword. And this episode, I feel, does a lot of damage to our heroes that we see later on in the last episode of season 4, where we see the future, because of a lot of those snippets from the future and how people have misconceptions and misunderstandings that are negative about Sheridan and our heroes, I feel stem from this particular narrative that they cemented in stone of history in ISN. And I feel like they'll suffer these things later on. And
They were still able to counter it a bit because
a bit, but it's still out there.
That point,
yeah.
And they didn't expect Garibaldi's AI to be like, "Oh, you're trying this mess. Believe me, my brain was reprogrammed to do that mess, and you're not going to get away with this." Because you know what? The Interstellar Alliance doesn't target civilian targets.
Right? It's like that play is still... It feeds another beast that comes out later, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the price of, like, expensive lies, I guess. But another thing I was going to say is, like, what you were saying earlier, Ambassador, about like people on different sides, because we have Lockley coming, and we see two perspectives of approaching Lockley. We see the Garibaldi approach to her because of the Civil War, and Sheridan's. And Sheridan, she says, "Hey, sir, you didn't ask me which side I was on. Sorry if this is a spoiler." And he said, "You're right, I didn't," because he knows what matters is the person he trusts. He trusts the person, not whatever they did at certain times. Then on the flip side, you have Garibaldi, who's obsessed with that, and he judges her, and then they go through a spiel, but in the end, he finds who she really is, and then they're friends, which tells me that the animosity is not necessary. It just slows us down from the greater truth.
I mean, Garibaldi does have personal reasons because he was used as a tool to undermine Sheridan and everybody else by Clark's administration through Bester.
So kind of like he's scarred, like some emotional...
yeah, because he was
trust
forced
issue.
against his will to betray everything he believed in,
Yeah. It's still like aggressive, and he's like, oh, he doesn't want that to happen. Yeah, that makes sense too. I guess that's the tragedy and the truth of like both aspects.
I will say one thing for the next episode. I like the fact that Zach gets annoyed with his uniform and the Minbari lady pokes him.
Oh, yes.
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 Ow, she did that on purpose!
You're right.
And Delaine's like, oh no. Or was it Lanier?
No,
It was Lanier. Lanier was with him.
Lanier's like, yeah, good job. Next time, use a bigger...
There's a
What
bigger
is it?
needle.
Bigger needle.
Yeah, bigger needle. That's right.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Just one more thing about this episode and why people choose sides. I think in about 2 or 3 episodes we meet Captain Jack, and when Marcus and Franklin are talking to him, he asks, "What were you talking about?" So many people don't know what was going on. The propaganda was so total.
Yeah,
no
they
wonder
had no idea. Like, wait, you were fighting what now? What was going on?
many
But
people-
what's
Yeah,
funny-
that's right.
is Jack has a keeper on his shoulder, so he's already involved with the mystical angle. Oh.
Right? So it's like he probably knows, but is not allowed to tell. But also he reflects what the people on Earth know.
Yep. But that was
Um,
also his way of trying to tell them something was up because the keeper was on him.
ISN did their job really well.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
unfortunately. Heck, that's the reason why I maybe watch 20 minutes of news a week. I don't really do much more than that because it's not even worth it.
If there's a speech, I just read it, and if something happened, I just read. I look at the numbers, opinions. I'll talk to friends if I must.
Well, a word of advice, Koj, you might want to get an interpreter if you read anything by the current president because, well, half of it's gibberish.
I read them
That's my
upside down, man.
That's my political jab for the week.
This day in dementia.
Oh, there's so many fun. Oh man, you said it. There's one more note. I
Sure.
actually, when I do my Babylon 5 rewatching, I actually watch Third Space after this one because I feel after the hit of this, we kind of establish where we are in the universe, and there's this little break before we lose Franklin to Mars and we lose Delenn going to Minbar. And it's kind of like, okay, well, Zach, you're now in charge, so we'll give you the suit, Third Space. Oh, the suit didn't fit well? Okay, we need to adjust it. And then there we got the poke. That's
And
kind of like
here's
how
the
I story
irony.
like fit Third Space in.
The
After
Minbari
this.
Civil War has some similar underpinnings to the Clark Civil War. Huh.
Right? It's so mirroring.
It's like, oh, the Warcast isn't going to kill other Minbari. Just throw them out into the elements. That's how we'll win.
Well, actually, next week's episode or next week's review is about Delenn going into the dreaming. That's next week's episode, which I think they shot the same time that they shot the first TV movie in the beginning. Yeah. So.
And Ducat is such a great character.
Oh yeah, we get such little time with him. Damn it.
Mhm.
Well, folks, I think we're gonna go and wrap up for the afternoon. But I want to thank you all for tuning in today, and I hope you all did enjoy the stream and the discussion. Make sure if you catch us on the replay that you leave your comments down below. Make sure if you're not subscribed to the rest of the council's channels. I know Elysium dropped the links for everybody, whether they were present or absent. So use those links and go check out Fiona Wolf, Lord Koj, Mountains of Elysium, Zod Rider, and of course our good friend Classic Comics. But we will, of course, be back next week with another installment, and at the same time, 3:30 Central. And I do want to let you all know I will be going live Sunday evening with another ambassadorial review, and I will be bringing you my review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and the latest episode of What If. So be sure to tune in for that. But that being said, folks, you have a great day, have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. And until next time, this is a Council of One saying, and please let's get it right this time. 3, 2, 1. Zooty.
Zoot.
Zoot.
It kind of try.
Well, we're saying it right, though. We just sync it.
Although I think it has to do with
All
the
right.
internet.
All right.
Yes.
We're going to try this one more time. We're going to get it right. We'll stay here all night if we have to. I'll keep the stream going until we get it right. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I was early. Oh,
No, that was perfect.
Nearly.
That was perfect.
was it?
All right.
Yay!
Yes, we got it. Except for Fiona. Good night.
No, we got it.
No!
Have a great weekend, everybody.